Good morning or good evening, depending on where you're listening from. This is Alvin, and today, on the second day of January 2026, the world feels like it has exhaled from the holidays, only to realize that nothing has truly slowed down. If anything, the first pages of this new year read like a continuation of unresolved chapters, written with sharper ink and higher stakes. In the United States, politics once again feels intensely personal, almost bodily so. President Trump has found himself under renewed scrutiny, not for a policy announcement or a diplomatic maneuver, but for his own physical condition. A casual admission about taking aspirin in higher than recommended doses, paired with visible bruising that he brushed off with characteristic nonchalance, has reopened an old conversation about transparency, health, and power. In another era, such details might have been footnotes. Today, they become symbols, magnified by a public that has learned to read meaning into every gesture, every explanation, every omission. Leadership in the modern age is no longer just about decisions. It is about the constant performance of resilience. That sense of tension extends beyond the personal and into policy. The administration's move to ban gender-affirming care coverage in federal employee health plans, alongside the freezing of federal child care funds in Minnesota over alleged fraud, has ignited legal battles and political backlash. These are not abstract budget lines. They touch families, identities, and livelihoods, and they reinforce how cultural conflict and governance are now deeply entangled. Each decision feels less like a technocratic adjustment and more like a signal flare in an ongoing ideological war. Meanwhile, New York City has turned a page of its own. The inauguration of Zohran Mamdani as mayor was less a quiet civic ritual and more a statement event. Large crowds gathered, energized by a platform rooted in democratic socialism and promises of structural change. Whether one views this as hopeful or risky, it is undeniably significant. America's largest city is once again acting as a political laboratory, testing ideas that could ripple far beyond its boroughs. History has taught us that what begins in New York rarely stays in New York. On the global stage, pressure is building in multiple directions at once. Relations between Washington and Caracas have grown more strained with the detention of several U.S. citizens in Venezuela. Each arrest adds another layer of uncertainty to an already brittle relationship, reminding us how easily individuals can become leverage in geopolitical chess games. At the same time, in East Asia, China has announced the completion of military exercises around Taiwan. The phrasing is calm, almost clinical, but the message is unmistakable. These maneuvers are part of a broader campaign of pressure that keeps the region in a constant state of alert, where stability depends less on trust and more on deterrence. In Iran, the human cost of economic distress has come sharply into focus. Protests over living conditions have escalated into deadly clashes in several provinces. What begins as frustration over prices and opportunity often ends, in such contexts, with bloodshed. It is a grim reminder that economics and human rights are inseparable, and that when systems fail to provide dignity, the consequences rarely remain contained. The economy itself is sending mixed signals. In the electric vehicle market, a quiet but profound shift is underway, as China's BYD moves closer to overtaking Tesla in annual sales volume. This is not just a corporate rivalry. It reflects the growing dominance of Chinese manufacturing and the strategic importance of supply chains, technology, and scale. The race for the future of mobility is increasingly global and increasingly competitive. Governments, for their part, are tightening their grip on the digital frontier. Crypto investors in several jurisdictions are now facing expanded requirements to disclose accounts and transactions to tax authorities. The era of digital assets existing in a regulatory gray zone is rapidly closing. What was once framed as a rebellion against traditional finance is being folded, piece by piece, into the same structures of oversight and enforcement. Healthcare, too, is under strain. As the year begins, drug makers in the United States have raised prices on hundreds of branded medicines, including vaccines and cancer treatments. This comes despite years of political pressure to rein in costs. For patients, the timing feels almost cruel, a reminder that even as innovation advances, access remains uneven and contested. Beyond policy and markets, the human stories continue to unfold with quiet tragedy. Off the coast of the Gambia, a migrant boat capsized, leaving at least 7 dead and many more rescued, with fears that hundreds may have been aboard. Each such incident is a stark illustration of desperation, of people willing to risk everything for the possibility of something better. In Syria, a suicide bombing in Aleppo has killed a police officer and injured others, a brief headline that nonetheless signals how fragile peace remains in regions that have slipped from the global spotlight. And in the United States, a high-profile murder case involving a California farmer and his estranged wife has drawn national attention, blending crime, media, and the complexities of interstate justice. Even nature has made its presence felt. Severe flooding in San Diego has submerged cars and disrupted daily life, captured in videos that feel both shocking and increasingly familiar. Climate events no longer arrive as surprises. They arrive as confirmations of a pattern we already know. There are, however, moments of release and reflection. College football fans watched Oregon advance to the playoff semifinals with a commanding victory, setting up a clash that promises spectacle and drama. And in the world of culture, the final season of Stranger Things has aired, closing a chapter on one of Netflix's defining series. Its ending has sparked conversation, not just about plot and characters, but about nostalgia, storytelling, and the passage of time itself. As we stand at the beginning of this new year, the message is clear. The world is not pausing to reset. It is moving forward, carrying unresolved tensions, emerging power shifts, and deeply human struggles along with it. If you've been listening this far, I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe, and to share your perspective on which of these stories you think will shape the months ahead. More context and details are waiting for you in the description. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay engaged.